question, there's a problem about question.
Okay.
Because we don't have microphone.
Okay.
So usually, all the panel, the speakers give the Twitter DM.
Sure.
And if you want, yeah, you can bring here the DM Twitter.
Okay.
Everybody can give you the
We've got
question.
we've got QR code.
QR code, perfect. Check, 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 check. Perfect. Okay.
Yeah. Madalena, can you hear me? No? Wonderful. Can everybody hear okay? Madalena? Okay. I don't know why I singled you out, but it's fun. Uh, Thanks for coming, everybody. This is a little bit overwhelming for us, but we're ready for you. So we've been told that questions is going to be challenging. We worked out a little hack. There are no microphones in the audience. We can just take the questions by you guys coming up here and using that microphone, which we'll swivel around. Just walk up here and talk into it.
Yeah, so the thinking here is that the live feed is what they want to prioritize. So that means all conversations and all sound needs to go through the mics. So come on up and ask the questions later. You can also DM us, I guess. If you want me to pick up some of your questions. Well, what's the best way of doing that?
Even better, DM these guys.
DM these guys.
Your questions should be for them.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. How do we switch Paolo to the slideshow thing? Nice one. Thank you, sir. So that's what we're here to talk about. We think you should watch these media creators out of Asia this year and maybe ask them to hire you in about a decade. This a little quick one about us. We're Splice. I'm Rishad, and that's Alan. This is what we do. We're a Singapore-based organization. We work with the global media ecosystem with folks like yourself. and we create and we support. We do lots of things. Celebrate viable media startups across Asia, and we support creators like Anu and Tanmoy on their journey to building that viability, building those audiences, building those businesses. Wow, we really messed up this slide. We are not shameless pro-creators. Sorry, let's try that again. We are shamelessly pro-creator. We're shamelessly pro-entrepreneur. We're pretty shameless about, plugging the skills and assets of these folks that we have here. We think, so we're fairly, Alan and I are two opinionated old men. The future of media, we're convinced, is user-centered, it's product-driven, it's niche, it's demand-driven, it's interest-based, and it serves a purpose and solves a problem. You need to be discovered, as these folks know very well. Everything you do needs to be targeted, it must be specific, it needs to be relevant, it needs to serve a purpose and a need. And that's how we think you build viability, at least in 2022. There's this lady who said that if you're not an entrepreneur in journalism these days, you should probably make your way out of journalism. Strong words there.
Yeah, she's right behind. She'll be coming up after.
Looming in the background. But we're fortunate. We're a fortunate bunch of people in this room and elsewhere. We live in what we like to naively, but excitedly call the golden age of media. And it's because you have everything you need to create and publish and amplify on your phone. All the tools you need to get started are free or practically free. You have all this access to knowledge, networks, and talent than ever before. There's a media startup opportunity pretty much for every single interest out there. And you can hire and work with and collaborate with thousands of product folks, data folks, management, operation folks around the world. You can learn anything you need to learn, again, all on your phone. And then you can create and publish, and what have become now table stakes, you can monetize on every single major platform out there, except Google Slides or something. But one of the things we're excited about is the fact that we have all these people in our community. The reason Splice exists is because Alan and I are fanboys, and we've somehow made a living doing this. These are all our heroes, all of them. And I think by hopefully next year, Alan, we'll be able to bring all of these people here, so we're going to need a much bigger table, many more chairs. Amen. Thank you. Thank you for that. This year, we could afford to bring two. These two wonderful children. Our children. We love them. You already know who they are, but I'm just going to say it anyway. This is the amazing Anu Harchu, and she's a education content creator. She said, could you please not say that I'm an influencer or anything? So I'm not going to say that. This young gentleman here, Tanmoy, is our dear friend, and also we look up to him for the work that he does and for the person he is. But he's told me to say that he's a mental health journalism creator. But we all know he's so much more. I'm actually going to shut up now.
So I get to ask the first question, right? Just to kick this off. The one thing that's always kind of struck us about creators like Tanmoy and Anu is that they all have a story as to why they got started in this. As you all know, entrepreneurship is a horrible, horrible job, as much as we believe in it. It's not something that you wake up in the morning deciding to do, right? There's always a push factor, and I think it would be great to start off the conversation by hearing what that factor was. For Anu was working at Bloomberg for about 7 years. as a TV anchor, TV presenter, reporter, producer, like one of those types of jobs, right? She was also creating her YouTube channel on the side. Until one day her boss kind of said to her, "You got to choose one or the other." What happened?
I'm gonna choose myself, is what just happened. Yeah. So yeah, it was quite. I'm gonna lend a word just Tanmoy told earlier. I mean, we're an accidental entrepreneurs, and when I found out about this panel's title, I kind of got an imposter syndrome there, because I don't realize that I'm an entrepreneur, but then when you look into it, apparently we are, and we weren't aware of it. And it's just that, obviously, journalism did made me who I am today, at least up until the point that I left them. But the good thing is that I was already creating content even before I started my well, not 9 to 5, I mean, more like 7 to 8 job, maybe like 2 a.m. even. So that gave me a lot of discipline that journalism has broadcast journalism is very paramilitaristic at some times. So that gave a lot of discipline there. But there was a way that I could tell my story much better, which was truly authentic to me, which is under my own name. And I wanted to tell the stories that I wanted to tell, but my older platform would not allow it because it's a financial media platform there. So on the side, I just started tinkering, and apparently that's how entrepreneurs start. You just start tinkering, and then you do everything there, and you start creating, you start hosting it, you start editing it yourself, you start posting. I mean, it's a one-person job in the beginning. It's very, and then you're in Perugia in a few years. Yeah.
Tanmoy.
I have run away all my life from the word entrepreneur because I firmly believe that I do not have it in me to be one. Pathologically scared of that word. But then I was working for a fancy media startup, The Correspondent. All of you, please, no questions about The Correspondent. And we lost our jobs in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic, and I had built what was then the world's first and only Sanity beat, mental health. And then I had a holy shit moment the next morning when I woke up. I was like, what do I do with all my subscribers? There are like 800 of them from around the world. Many of them are, they engage with me almost on a weekly basis, some on a daily basis. Am I going to lose all these lovely people? So I got a call from my mom. I come from a small town in the eastern part of India saying that your dad's in the ICU. So I said, oh, so I get a bunch of time on the plane to figure out what to do. And well, everybody had a Substack by then. So I was sitting at the foot of my father's hospital bed, creating my Substack called Sanity by Tanmoy. One of my colleagues said, that sounds like a cologne brand. And I said, you know what, like our industry stinks, so I'm happy that, So that's how it started. I had no idea what I was getting into. I had zero negative expectations. And then within the first 100 days, Sanity became one of the top health-related paid newsletters on Substack, the only non-Western name on the leaderboard. I had another oh shit moment. I was like, this is totally unexpected. Now what do I do with this? Clearly I can't shut this down because people are paying me to do this now. Then I got into this course at CUNY, and they kind of encouraged me to start thinking like a proper entrepreneur. One of the things that entailed was making tough decisions, like moving on from Substack and creating your own website. And having worked my entire career as a business journalist, working and having helped build 2 reader-funded ventures, I was very clear that I did not want advertising. I did not want corporate money. So I created India's first, probably Asia's first, 100% reader-funded independent mental health journalism platform. It's called sanitybytanmoy.com. I have paying supporters in 40+ countries. One of the things that I learned from my earlier media jobs, and then shut up, is that it's very important to have a strictly no jerks policy. And I'm very happy that my community is, completely devoid of jerks. I work with myself, work by myself. I've discovered that it's one of the nicest things I could have done for my own sanity. It's very challenging, but we have been asked to keep the tempo upbeat. So I'll talk about the dark stuff, the bad stuff outside, one-on-one. So yeah.
You know, what I hear from hanging out with the two of you, separately. By the way, this is Perugia is the first time we ever met these two heroes of ours, but we've known them all. It feels like all our life, online, and we've consulted with them and we've learned from them. What I hear from both of you so much is this responsibility that you have to your audiences. This is all I think about when one of the reasons I'm so struck with you, Alan and I are so overawed by you, is how responsible you are to them, how you are, in fact, your audiences. Tanmoy tends to talk about lived experience, and Anu has lived experience in what she does. Tell us about that responsibility. What is that? Sometimes you've called it overbearing, you've called it troublesome, you've called it, gratifying. Tell us about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I just sold myself a bit short over there. Well, I started doing YouTube in 2018. Just actually started taking it seriously because I created my channel about 10 plus years ago, and I just left it there and I just picked it back up. And I think this would go into the responsibility aspect that Rishad was asking, is that since 2018, I uploaded new video on every Monday. It started at 9 a.m., now it's at 7 a.m. And since July 2018, I missed only 1 week.
But the lovely story that you told me was you missed that 1 week, but then you found that you were there a couple of minutes late, and you found a whole bunch of your audience waiting there and going, "Hey, Anu."
Yeah, in my Instagram, people started swarming my Instagram DMs, like, "Are you okay? Did anything happen? Like, what happened with the video and such?" So people started checking in, which I think I actually am very glad that I missed that week, because when you are churning out videos constantly and just you're pushing it in, and then people were not responding at that time. I mean, I didn't know people were there waiting for it that are like just on the clock. So just missing that actually made me realize or understand that there are people who are like invested in it. At Monday, who wants to watch a video on Monday at 7 a.m.?
If
Right?
it's you, I will. But listen, rumor has it that you publish your earnings reports online.
Yeah.
Talking about responsibility to your audiences. What the hell is going on?
Yeah, good question. Some of my members are in this room, actually. So I have paying supporters in 40 plus countries in all 6 continents. I'm very anti-scale and anti-growth, and I very proudly wear that. So I have some total of about 3,000 subscribers, that's all. But I'm very proud to tell you that last year in December, I reached a monthly recurring revenue of about $1,600, which is a king's ransom in our part of the world. And for context, Laura is sitting here. I'm going to quote from one of her stories. They did this research in Brazil, and they found out that less than half the creators in that country, which is very comparable to India on many socioeconomic parameters, make less than $100 a month, and 23% don't make any money. And Brazil is a booming market for media consumption online. So just for context, what this community has helped me achieve is truly jaw-dropping, and it doesn't, pay for my lifestyle or anything. Not that I have a very expansive lifestyle, but it's incredible. And one of the things that I've learned in my previous reader-funded stints in different newsrooms is that readers, your audience does not really care about you being accountable to the extent of publishing your financial reports. They don't really, nobody's going to come and ask you for that. They actually are always surprised. Some of them find it really like awkward, disarming, but I do it anyway. And That, the half-yearly financial report that I publish, including literally an account of every penny that I've raised and how I've spent it. It has pie charts of how I use my 8 hours every day. That remains one of the most circulated, shared pieces on my website, along with one piece that I published on the day I launched, which was, who's the guy that you just supported? Here are 16 promises that I'm going to make to you. It had a 70% open rate, and nothing stopped that. So I think, accountability is really central to my business model. Like, this is what builds trust, and then that trust kind of translates into word of mouth, hopefully some of them converting into paying supporters, etc. And I love it. It's the one piece that I spend the most time working on.
I just want to add to that one, because Tanmoy is one of the person who is very user-funded, right? It's a one type of user. For me, it's two different types of users. One is the viewer or the audience, and also, unfortunately, I do need to take sponsors on my YouTube channel and then also Instagram. So that's another type of audience that I have. But going back to that responsibility part is that creators like us are nobody if we don't have our audiences, our supporters. So we have to hold that trust as a trust very high in our regards. So we need to cherish it. So we can't lose our audience's trust if we were to survive in this industry as an entrepreneur. So when there's a sponsorship coming into the mix, that muddles the water. So similar to what Tanmoy did with the 16 promises that I made, what I usually say is that if a content is sponsored, I disclose it in every video. So this brand is supporting this content to bring it to you, and because and then also any opinion that I make in that video is always authentic. And I do get reached a lot about different sponsors that do want to does not want to disclose the sponsorship and such. Then I just reply to them, then I'm not your creator. It's just not going to work for me. So it's always have to be win-win-win on each side. The client has to win because through me they can get awareness and reach out to the audience about either the product or the service, whichever it is. And the audience needs to win because they're getting what they want, and then they're not being lied to, or at least they are being transparent about it. And I get to win because, well, I get to eat, I guess. I get to earn a living at least in there. So that is something that I try to emulate or in all the content, so that my audience still trusts me even if there is a sponsor there, and they trust my judgment in choosing whoever or whatever partner that is going to benefit the audience themselves. So one point I got reached out by an oil machinery oil distributor, and I don't drive a car. And it's like, it's not gonna match up. Or so the followers I don't like the word followers, but the people who trust me needs to get information that are truly authentic to whoever that is creating them. So that is a blessing and a curse of a very personal content creators, isn't it?
But what Anu is not telling you is that she got mobbed by a bunch of her followers in Perugia, and they took her out to dinner. She creates videos only in Mongolian, and I don't know of too many other people attending this festival who got taken out for dinner by their YouTube supporters. Why don't you tell them about that?
Oh yeah. As of this morning, I have about 93,000 subscribers on YouTube, and about 80% of them from the analytics. I mean, one beautiful thing about Google is that it gives a lot of analytics. 80% of them are watching from Mongolia. But the rest of it are a global community that speaks Mongolian or understands it. So one great thing that happens every time that I travel outwards and I post about where I am on Instagram, at least somebody just reaches out, hey, I live in this town, would you mind if I take you out for coffee or something? So I take that every chance. I just make a note that I meet with them and then just converse. I mean, what would they like about the channel? What benefits them and such? So that helps a lot. And then because I only make my content in Mongolian, that was a decision that I made. My channel started in English, but in 2018, I decided to convert it back into Mongolian. And especially Mongolians who are, or Mongolian language speakers who are living abroad tends to miss a Mongolian language in their ear. And apparently these type creators like me fills that void, so I'm told. And I got taken to a dinner like 2 days in a row here.
Well, that's another business model in itself, right? If you ever need to eat as a struggling creator. Can we talk a little bit about scale? You mentioned it earlier. You said you're very anti-scale. And I know how difficult it is for you, for anyone who's a creator to make that move, that jump to zero, right? Yeah. How does that play out for you? When do you decide that you need to go hire someone else who speaks for you on your behalf?
Yeah. So the reason I am very anti-scale, I'm actually not opposed to what the word scale represents. I'm opposed to the way in which the media industry, any industry, pursues scale. I've been a business journalist all my life, so I have a very close understanding of how scale is construed and chased. I figured that, I think about two or 3 months ago, I realized that I was taking on too much. It's all becoming too much for one person. In fact, one of the things, apart from talking about my editorial strategy and things like that, the most number of panels that I've been on have been to talk about Sanity's design. People apparently think I'm some design guru. And I have learned everything from scratch. And now it's becoming overwhelming. So from writing, a little bit of commissioning, art, marketing, chasing subscribers for failed payments, and using we in my social media activity as if there's like an army to support me or something. I figured that I need to get help, but there are many constraints. So one is, of course, resource, and I have a very, very strict policy of not using any labor. Even my subscribers, some of them have actually written for me, and I've paid them. Because when you invest emotional labor or labor of any kind on a platform, I need to pay you. So I have been increasingly worrying about getting more people on board, and I'm absolutely terrified to take that responsibility. I have now, after actually, the Splice community is incredible. You guys should actually join their Slack channel if you haven't already. We have these conversations all the time, and I somehow gathered the courage to go out and hire my first intern 2 months ago. And when I put out an email to my members saying, hey, I'm about to hire an intern, and I have these quarterly roundtables with my paying supporters. So this was an idea that actually they proposed to me in terms of, why don't you at least hire an intern who could help you part-time? So I said, hey, I'm hiring this person, and I have to pay them a certain amount of money. And I suddenly got like 200 euro, 400 euro donations in my PayPal saying, where is all this money going to come from? Like, we know your finances, so see how that adds up. So now I'm quite focused on, first of all, overcoming the mental block, the fear of taking responsibility for another person, and making that journey from being a solo creator to actually a bona fide entrepreneur, I guess. So yeah, that's where I'm at. We've had this conversation. Yeah. We
did. We were just, Tanmoy and I were talking about, should we incorporate or not? What were you thinking? What are your market situations? Is that the reason why the incorporation came up is just hiring. I mean, scaling, I guess, because as an individual, you cannot really be responsible for somebody else's living wages, and maybe incorporation will come into it. I'm looking for a lot of support from these guys from Splice on that end, hopefully. So, and speaking to that solo creator is that you need support all the time, because when you are the CEO, when you are the operation person, when you are the creator, and you are your own CMO and everybody in between, you're doing everything, but if you don't have full support on that, it's very easy to get burnt out or get really very doubtful to yourself. And the word solo entrepreneur, being a solo entrepreneur, it's very lonely sometimes. And so that's the dark side of creator industry there, because it's from the outside it looks very glitz and glamour, right? When it's successful, it looks amazing. I mean, people think I am in Perugia, but you get to travel and such. But it is a lot of work, and having the right support system, even if it's an intern or if it's somebody just taking care of things, just in the background, is always great. And there is always a need for proper training or proper support that just comes up with it, and people don't talk about it enough, right?
Yeah, and I also should point out here that the creator economy, just like the Great Resignation, I mean, these terms are practically meaningless for people in our part of the world, because the creator economy wasn't designed for people who look like us. Everything from the way payments are integrated within your platforms. So for instance, she, because of the nature of her work, uses GA, Google Analytics. I don't use anything that has, one of the first tabs you will see on my homepage is "You are not being tracked here." Yeah. So I use only open source software, including Ghost, which is my core software on which I host the site. I use Commento for commenting. I don't use Discuss. I use Plausible Analytics, which is a GA alternative, which only gives me aggregate data, no individual tracking. All of that costs money. And these are not things that are intuitively known to people like us. And the things that are taken, that are taken for granted by creators in the West. For instance, Anu was telling me that Patreon does not even work in Mongolia. It doesn't work in Nigeria. India is one of the most advanced fintech ecosystems in the world. I'm very proud that we have this infrastructure in India available. But having said that, every single choice that we have to make as creators is expensive. We have to, if you want to build it ethically, if you want to build it slowly, you want to do it right, it's very, very hard to do it out of where we come from. So, and often when it comes to hiring and when it comes to bringing other people on board, this is an understated risk, because there aren't too many other people out there who understand this ideology or understand this philosophy of building something that is rooted in the global South, doing it ethically by eschewing a lot of tools that make our members and readers very uncomfortable. So it's really hard. I think about 20–25% of my time goes in just figuring things out, because there isn't even, apart from, and we keep talking about Splice, trust me, we're not plugging them. They have no interest in us beyond seeing us succeed. But apart from that community, we don't even have a peer group as such that we can talk to. So it's intensely lonely, and the responsibility then becomes even bigger and more mind-effing, essentially.
I'm so jealous that you spend like about 1/4 of your time figuring things out. That's like 50% for me. I mean, it's so hard to get money into Mongolia that it's just user-funded content is just not possible in Mongolia. That's why I take sponsorships there. But I do make a promise to the users or the audience there. So the markets are quite different, and the creator economy in every country or every region is quite different. And Tanmoy just shed, I hope that Tanmoy just shed very good light on that one.
I just love listening to these guys. And, I think this is the first time you've met, except on the little Perugia Telegram channel that we had.
We met before, we just didn't tell you.
No, I just look at these guys talking, and she's saying, hey, I wish I knew that you did this, and I wish, and then I think, in a couple of years' time, these two guys, I wonder what would come of this. Like, what would happen to Sanity by Tanmoy? What would happen to the Anu Harchu brand? It's going to be this global conglomerate. I was telling Tanmoy that, he after this, he needed to start looking for private jets, which would really mess with your brand. Yeah. You're here saying I'm not even an entrepreneur. I'm just like...
No, so actually on that note, I have to say a couple of things actually. One is, there is a very big difference, and it bothers me because I mean I've been a career journalist, and I know how to use social media. I know how to make Twitter work for me. I know it. As a mental health journalist who sort of marries lived experience with deep reportage. For instance, I once did a piece about, I actually live streamed a panic attack on Instagram once. And then I wrote about it. And one of the things I spent a lot of time thinking about was, am I monetizing my trauma? Like, how messed up is that? Like, you know? So the nature of my work is such that I have to answer these impossible moral questions all the time. And one of those happens to be whether at some point I should aspire to having a private jet. But to very briefly answer your, to address the point about where Sanity by Tanmoy will be or could be, or I don't know, Anu will speak for herself. I am doing this as pretty much a wild experiment. I'm very lucky that I have the means to continue doing this. I have some savings because I worked in a European company briefly. But I do know that there are already, the augurs are actually quite bright, and I'm not a very optimistic person. One of the things that we learned at the CUNY course was that you have to ruthlessly diversify, relentlessly and ruthlessly diversify, and do not get so emotionally attached with your core product that you don't look for money elsewhere. So this year I've already landed 2 grants. They're small grants. One of them is going to be dedicated to doing a series of stories on suicide prevention in low and middle income countries. I do a few consulting gigs on the side, and I always tell them that I'm probably the last person they should sign up, because I am very anti sort of neoliberalism and extractive capitalism, but they give me money, and one of the things I make them sign is that you cannot have any editorial control over Sanity. So that money does not come into Sanity in any way. It just, I have a 4-year-old, so I have bills to pay. Anu, where do you see your brand going 20 years from now?
Honestly, I have no idea. I just don't know it at all. I wanted to like add more to what you just said. Like, are you monetizing your own trauma?
Yeah.
I really think you just should. But monetization is, it's not only about the money per se. Let's go back. I mean, you're sharing your experience. That goes back to your lived experience. Yeah. And then sharing what you're going through, whether it's good or bad, is always gonna bring value to your audience there. I wanted to say, like, last year, I got COVID. Well, who didn't, right? But because the COVID situation, how countries are handling it is not very well done in some places, mine included. So what I did was, if you got positive diagnosis, you were to when I got it, you are to quarantine for 10 days. So what I did was, I recorded me getting my tests done, and then also just getting the positive results, and I just vlogged the whole 10 days. Just me living alone, at home, alone, just going through it on my own. And the thing is, because my name was in the system, like the family doctor came, with the hazmat suit and such, and then it gave me that packet thing. I just documented everything. I just put it into everything. And then I just published it on YouTube. And apparently, all the districts, the care that are being given to the COVID patients were quite different. And also the information out there was so small that people weren't sure how to take care of themselves within that very small amount of information that the government was giving, so I'm told. And afterwards, that video apparently gave a lot of people like what to do, how to proceed, how to get your results in the system, what to take. Even like on one day, I read out all the labels of the pills that was given, and I just went deep dive into it. And then there was one antiviral and one antibacterial medicine. And I don't know why they have given me an antibacterial at all. I understand the antiviral, but so it is like sharing your trauma, but you're giving more value to your audience as well. So it is what like personality-driven content is. You are experiencing the world through you and then sharing it to the audience, and as long as it adds value to the audience themselves, there's more value that to be created. And then as long as you provide value proposition, as what marketers would say, I think they should just go for it.
I thank you, Anu. Actually, just 5 more seconds, and then we can, I think, take questions. To Anu's point, you know, we are unabashedly and very proudly rooted in the global south, and our trauma gets written about by people who don't know our reality, right? And so increasingly I've realized that it's important for me to really take ownership of my own experience and say it my way. Anyway, people with mental health conditions are terribly stigmatized. We all know the drill. I'm not going to go into that. And in the global south, you know, there are just way too many ill-informed stereotypes. And this makes me feel a little more comfortable with what I'm doing, because I feel like I am taking control. I'm taking ownership of my own experiences and not letting an outsider come and do a really bad job of it. So, yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Let's do some questions.
Yeah. Who's got questions? You may have to come right up here, unfortunately, and use the microphone.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for the panel. It was really inspiring, actually. I have 2 questions. The first is about the audience. I mean, more in detail. Is something that you look for, like, I want to speak with this kind of people, or is something more random, like, okay, I start to talk, I see I'm speaking with these people, but then I want to talk also with, I mean, how was your experience on that? And the second is more personal, but maybe it's quite generic. I have to write a business plan for a future enterprise I should, create in the future for a project. So if you have some tips on this, I mean, it's very generic, but I mean.
You'll take
I guess since I track my audience, I'll take at least the first part. Well, a creator does not start with a plan to make a business out of it. We just start doing it, and then somehow it resonates. So it just comes gradually. So whether to respond or feed that, whoever was watching's interest is a very personal decision that you can make. Or you get to decide, like, no, I'm going to do this instead, rather than chasing clout. Is that the correct term? Like chasing clout? I want to do some good in the world, or like add value to it, so you can go the other way. So it's a strategic decision of the publisher or the content creator that you are going to do, and it's deeply, deeply rooted in your own personal belief or like the organization's philosophy and such. So you do you, honey.
The business plan question, it's going to take about six hours. So, but the audience question, and I'm happy to talk to you outside. The audience question, my decision was actually quite simple. Mental health, lived experience experts, caregivers, funders, policymakers, academicians, and I don't know, by some fortunate, accident once again, a lot of my audience, including a lot of my paying supporters, are actually based in the West. And the feedback that I get from them is that, hey, we don't get to hear these stories in our part of the world. So that's why they, so it's sort of the audience kind of formed itself around the principles of my journalism. So I figured that, people spend a bunch of time thinking about audience segmentation and creating communities. That's very cool these days. Everyone talks about creating a community. The community already exists. You just got to find them and serve their needs. And the way you find them is by declaring outright that these are your principles. And then magic happens. They automatically coalesce around your values and principles. Yeah.
Who has more questions? Bring them up.
Thank you for the panel. As a fellow accidental entrepreneur, I just wanted to ask you how much the entrepreneurial side of things takes you away from the journalism and the content, and how much do you resent it if it does?
I can spend like 10 seconds on that. Irena, thank you. I used to detest it, to be honest, to think like a business person. I especially hate sending out these mails saying, dear so-and-so, I noticed that your payment has failed for card reasons, and can you please update? But what I really very viscerally feel now is that if I don't talk about my work, if I don't take pride in my work, and if I don't market the shit out of it, nobody else is going to do it for me. And so I have lost. I mean, I saw shameless a bunch of times. We should really be shameless. There is no shame. So I'm not sure if I've become more entrepreneurial, but this literally ties in with my survival. If I don't do this, and if like by the end of the session, at least 10 of you haven't become paying supporters, I am a failure. So I've got to talk myself up, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're a one-person business, right? So there's no way of going around handling the business or operation side anyway. So at least have an understanding of the local system that you're working in, or at least the market. That's a given that you have to do it anyway. There's no around to it. And gladly, I mean, I do take a lot of interest in operation design myself. So I was able to. I don't take very much of a. It's not too tiresome. Yeah. It's not too tiresome for me, gladly, but tax system is just. It's just everywhere else. It's just right. You know what I mean. So that's the hard part. But if you're an entrepreneur, even though you're not filing every reports, you could hire other people, but you have to have at least an understanding of how it works, and so that if you're a sole entrepreneur, you're launching a business. I mean, if you don't know your financials or any other documents related things, I mean, you're not going to take off. So it's just part of the work.
Well, one of the things, as you know, that I have the freedom to be able to say as a non-journalist. And I know that I can speak for Alan because we're very old friends and we're very old friends, is that perhaps in the case of these folks, journalism is entrepreneurship. There is no distinction because you're creating your product. You know, that I think perhaps that is where you function. That's the space in which you function.
Yeah, and one of the other things that comes with Detatory is that while I'm very shamelessly sort of self-promotional, I also have learned not to take rejection very personally. And in fact, the kind of rejection I get is very interesting. So there are a bunch of I have a very low dropout rate. My readers are awesome, but there have been half a dozen, I think 5 people since the inception who actually dropped off, stopped reading, and they've emailed me saying, hey, this is not a reflection of what you are doing. I have just reached a happy place in life, and I don't want to read about trauma anymore. And it makes me super, super happy. Those are the kind of emails that make my day. When somebody says, hey, I don't need to read this anymore, or I can't take this anymore right now because I'm in a good space, I'm so happy. So this is something that they don't teach you in business school. This can also happen with your customers, and I take that as enormous validation for my work rather than rejection. So, and I don't take it personally.
So to that last point, what is the main stereotype that you're constantly facing, both of you, to do with your journalism? Because it's very specific for the pair of you.
Wow.
Pick one.
Yeah. Which one would I pick? Exactly. The funniest thing that I sometimes get asked on Instagram is do you take horse to work every day? And I say and I write I get to pick 1 out of 3 or something. Just answer by joke. So it is. Unfortunately, more of a northeastern Asian country comes up with a gender stereotype a lot, and being a young-ish female in there, that I do face that kind of seem as somebody who could not handle her finances sometimes, and who cannot handle her businesses there. And I always asked, when are you gonna marry? You're getting old. When are you going to find a husband? And those types of comments do still come to my YouTube. And the good thing that happens is that the other side of the community who watches it, just in the reply of the comment, they just destroy that person. They just, like, how dare you? Like, she's an independent woman who's taking control of her life. And so that's the great part of the great community. I mean, there's always some rotten eggs in there, but the positive side is like what fuels it. And it is a very human response that whenever you enjoy something, you don't really like validate it, or you don't really send in, right? But you do tend to leave negative comment if you do sense negativity. And do I have a minute to share? You do tend to do that, but like I think about a year ago or so, I was feeling, it was just that time of the month, and I was feeling a bit down. And then all of a sudden, I get called like official, because in Mongolian, well, in English, I'm failing to do that, but in Mongolian, I'm relatively eloquently spoken, shall we say? And it gets labeled as official, and that is kind of a bad word in Mongolian. And it just, all of a sudden, I started getting a lot of hate on that in my video, and I just got like, why am I even doing it? I mean, just I don't resonate with my audience, and I just, yada yada. So from work, I was still with Bloomberg by then. I was just walking from work to home, and I just started a camera, and I just talked to the audience, saying like, so this is why I sound official in my videos, is that I just explain the process of how I plan my videos, which is like three different stages. One is like I script every word, because it's important that I get it right. Or I do more of an outline, which is like a more easier videos, and sometimes I just go with it. So it depends on the subject of the video. And I just explained it, but I guess it came out to be a bit of an emotional video. And I asked in that video, so if you find any value in the content that I'm creating, please let me know, because, I'm getting emotional talking about this. Please. Yeah, please, I just asked them, please let me know in the comments if you find any value in content that I'm creating, because people don't tend to do that, and recently I've been getting a lot of negative emotions there. And then I just posted it. That video got so many likes, and the comment section is like flooded with like positive comments, and then people just realizing, yeah, you don't really leave positive comments when you feel warm inside and such. So that gave me that push, that gave me purpose to continue working, yeah. Thank you. So you just ask them, and they will respond. I mean, yeah.
I am a cis-het, upper caste, upper class man. The only thing I'm not is white. So, I mean, I tick all the boxes of privilege. I live with a mental health condition. That's a separate. But so there are of course stereotypes, etc. But what I've realized is that most people come from a place of ignorance and not malice. At least in my experience, a lot of people come from a place of ignorance because they're not taught about our realities and our experiences. And likewise, I'm not taught about the experiences of people who are less privileged than me, so I get it. And one of the things that I was very intentional about from day one, and there is a graphic in that piece on my values and principles, was that disagree but do not disrespect. I will absolutely not tolerate jerks, like I said. So I am very lucky, I'm very fortunate, I don't get too much hate, but every now and then there will be a person who will try and reduce mental health to biomedical shit, and I talk about mental health from a political, cultural, economic point of view. So that is one stereotype I'm struggling still to dismantle, that mental health is not about popping a bunch of pills or going for therapy, but about poverty, unemployment, violence, and things like that. So yeah, that's the predominant stereotype I'm fighting.
Yeah.
All right, we have only one, well, we have time for only one more question, so.
Is that okay?
Is that all right?
Guys?
Yeah.
Graziano.
It's a very reluctant yes.
Yeah, all right. Let's do one more.
Hi, Hi, good to see you. Hi, thank you so much for your session. I have a question for Tanmoy. What do you think about the sustainability of what you're doing? I mean, considering that you come from the correspondence and you know what happened, I'm not trying to like burst a bubble, and I'm like, you know, I'm really sorry, but you know, I really want to see like how you think about this.
Thank you. Sustainability is like my top focus this year. I feel Sanity will survive. Maybe it will mutate. I already feel that, I mean, one of the lessons I've learned from my previous jobs is that if you keep a low cost base, if you don't want to become a world conquering sort of media empire, it's very possible to create a sustainable platform. I do not have dreams of world conquest. And therefore, for me, sustainability looks very different. For me, sustainability, and I actually spelled out that goal. I said to my supporters, I should be able to pay fair rates to 3 creators, 3 writers, 3 artists, and 3 designers by the end of this financial year. So just help me do that. And that is sustainability for me. So, yeah. Thank you for the question.
Good one. It was, the question was done, well, I mean, he speaks very well. I mean, I second that statement.
All right, well, I guess we're out of time here, so we just want to say a quick thank you to everybody for showing up. This has been a lot of fun. I could go, you know, on the entire day just listening to these two talk about how they look at the business and how they look at journalism, but these are 2 people that you should definitely get to know. So make sure that you sign up. You smash that subscribe button.
Smash it.
And hit the notification bell.
And hit the notification bell so you get informed.
Alrighty.
Well done.
If anybody wants a Splice sticker, I have some.
It's actually really helpful.